You may even make the excuse. You may say, well, I can't change my environment right now. It's just not reasonable. You know what's not reasonable? Staying inside of a life that you hate. Staying inside of a reality that you don't want to be a part of. Being around people who are influencing you in a negative way that's going to be very hard for you to uncondition from your mind. Don't put yourself in the wrong environment. What's going on, brother? Welcome to another morning motivation. I've been fucking with my camera settings this morning, and I was trying to change the way the picture looks, and apparently I'm just white as hell. I am pasty as fuck. It's just because I've been inside so much. You know, Arizona gets hot as fuck in the summer. It's like 120 degrees here some days. And yeah, so I just end up staying inside, you know, more likely than not, because otherwise I burn to a crisp when I go out there. Anyway, let's jump into a story today. And today I want to tell you a story about a baby camel and a mother camel. And you're like, Gino, what the fuck are you talking about? I want you to hold on to the end, because once we get there, you will understand completely what the message is about. So one day, a baby camel looks up to a mother camel and says, Mom, why do we have long legs and hoofs? And she said, well, son, we have long legs and hoofs because the desert is a very sandy place. And the long legs and hoofs help us walk across the sand. He said, okay, but why do we have big humps on our back? Why do we have those? She said, well, son, the desert is a very hot place, and the humps help us store water. He said, okay, that makes sense. But what about the long eyelashes? Why do we have those? And she looks at him and says, well, son, the desert is a very windy place, and the eyelashes help keep the sand out of our eyes. He said, okay, so we have long legs and hoofs, humps on our back, and long eyelashes for the desert, then why do we live in the zoo? I'll tell you, when I first heard that story, it transformed my life, because many of you maybe know, but some of you maybe not, is I grew up in a trailer park about 30 minutes north of Detroit. And as a child, I'd never really quite felt like I could fit in. You know, I used to literally take a different bus home from school when I was in middle school. I used to find the different bus routes, and I would intentionally take a different bus home because I didn't want people knowing where I lived. So I would have it drop me off in a different subdivision, and then I would walk home from there. Which was kind of strange that a child would feel that way. But I never felt like I was in the right environment. You know, I never felt like I was poor. I never felt like I was born into the right life. And it's not that I necessarily denied it. I just felt out of place. And nothing made sense to me. You know, I remember I used to sit in my room as a child and I would cry a lot because I wouldn't understand why my life was the way it was. I felt like, you know, I shouldn't be here. I should be somewhere else. And it took me a long time to realize that there was nothing truly wrong with me necessarily. It was that I was in the wrong environment. Because when I was about 18, I got kicked out of that trailer park. And I was pretty much homeless. And I had to go live with my grandma. And when my environment changed, my attitude on life changed as well. Things started making more sense to me. I was able to think more clearly because I didn't feel like I just wasn't in the right place anymore. My grandparents lived in a nicer subdivision. I thought my grandparents were rich and they had like a $140,000 house. That just goes to show you how like broke I was. Like they were middle class. I thought they were rich. So their house was cleaner, you know, it was more organized, and I just felt different living in there. And changing your environment can do a lot for you, because even in biology, there's something called an invasive species. So essentially, when one animal is in the wrong environment, is in the wrong ecosystem, it will fuck up the environment and make everything around them have a miserable life, right? Because it messes with the food chain, it disrupts the natural balance and order inside that ecosystem, and it just doesn't belong there. So why don't we use that same term when it comes to people? Sometimes people are in the wrong environment. Maybe you're in the wrong environment right now. Maybe you're constantly questioning, why the hell does my life seem harder than it's supposed to be? Not in a good way, not like it's in adversity, but unnecessarily difficult. Maybe you feel like you're in a job that doesn't suit your skill sets or talents, or maybe the culture around you doesn't feel like it fits who you are. You know, I used to work at a go-kart track when I was like 18 years old, and all of them were car guys. And they would just talk about cars all the time. I didn't give a fuck about cars. I don't care. As long as it gets me from point A to point B, I'll drive a Prius, you know? So I was never a car guy, and I just felt like I was in the wrong environment. I'm like, all these people care about something I don't give a shit about. You know, and they were all heavy drinkers and smoked cigarettes, and you know, I didn't even fucking drink or smoke or did nothing. I was like a straight edge guy. All I did was fucking work out and eat healthy and show up to work and go home. So I didn't feel like I was in the right environment. So I want you to reflect for a moment. Do you believe that your problems could stem from your environment? Do you believe that the reason why you feel the way you do right now, in this negative headspace, why nothing seems to matter, nothing seems to make sense to you, it seems like you're having an unnecessarily difficult life? Does it seem like you're in the wrong environment? Something you need to take account for. Because I want you to think about even like a lion in the zoo. You know, you get this fucking big ass badass lion, right, who runs the savannah and the African plains. And then when you put it inside the zoo, it gets all fucking scrawny, and then they throw it a Costco steak once in a while. You know, now it can no longer hunt. It can no longer go on the savannah and kill its prey and get a nice, hot, fresh meal. There's no thrill anymore. So the lion gets depressed. It's in the same habitat. There's not much room for it to move around. And it doesn't even get to kill and eat fresh meat. So maybe you're doing the same right now. Maybe you're fucking a cog in the wheel. Maybe you're just spinning the fucking wheel of life. And you're wondering why something feels out of place. You can't quite identify it. It can be very easy to get stuck in that trap. And fuck. I mean, it can be very hard to see that there's something actually wrong with your environment. And it's not what's wrong with you. It's hard to separate yourself from that. I mean, even in biology, they say that the environment defines the organism. I want you to think about a polar bear versus a grizzly bear. They live in two separate environments, two separate climates. Or even a sloth bear. You ever see those motherfuckers? Insane. They chase tigers and stuff in fucking Africa, whatever the hell it is. But you could be just in the wrong environment, my friend. You know, and the environment will shape you. And if it's shaping you into somebody that you don't want to be, you need to identify that very fast. Because otherwise, your brain cannot turn off what it absorbs. You can't shut off your brain sucking in external stimulus. So if you're in an environment that is training you to be somebody who you don't want to be, and you're wondering why you feel a sense of misery and depression and anxiety and fear and anger and doubt and uncertainty every single day, well, it could be that you're in the wrong environment, friend. You know, this same thing happened to me many times in my life. You know, when I moved from Michigan to Arizona, it was a transformative process. I look back at pictures of myself when I lived in Michigan. I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? The way I dressed, the mood that I had possessed over me every single day, the people that I tried to associate with, the goals that I tried to approach, everything was in the context of what was available inside of my environment and how my environment was actually influencing me and making my choices go one way or the other. Because we tend to look at what's available to us and then we construct our reality from there. But I urge you to think differently. I urge you to think about what you want your reality to be and find an environment to match that. Find an environment that will assist you to get there. And sometimes the environment doesn't necessarily have to be supportive and complimentary. Maybe you're a competitive person. Maybe you like to be around a whole bunch of people that make you feel on edge constantly. Maybe you like to be inside of an environment that feels like it's constantly pushing on you. Like it's constantly putting pressure on you to grow. You know, like maybe you like to be the stupidest person in the room or the poorest person in the room because you want to be like the people around you, and that sense of adversity and that sense of differentiation is what actually pushes you to become the person who you want to be most. But if it's the opposite, think about if you want to be in shape and you're around a whole bunch of people that fucking smoke cigarettes, they drink all the fucking time, they're fat and lazy, you know, they like to make excuses for their life, they like to complain all the time, they have poor values, maybe they just want to watch sports all day and just eat shitty food. You know, if you're around those people, you can't be upset that that's the type of person that you're becoming. Or you can't be upset at the fact that those people are that way. That's just who they are. What you can control, however, is yourself. You could change the environment. You can change your placement in the world. You could say, I don't want to fucking be here anymore. And you could change it. You may even make the excuse. You may say, well, I can't change my environment right now. It's just not reasonable. You know what's not reasonable? Staying inside of a life that you hate. Staying inside of a reality that you don't want to be a part of. Being around people who are influencing you in a negative way, that's going to be very hard for you to uncondition from your mind. Don't put yourself in the wrong environment. So I urge you, my friend, if you're in the wrong environment, you need to identify that as soon as possible. Because I could tell you right now, it's not very fun to be a camel in the zoo. All right, brother. I want to thank you for watching this morning motivation, and I will see you on the next one.